All right, well, we want to pick things up at point 4 of the 3 circles of evidence: cosmology, biology, and history. Now, what does cosmology mean? You heard that word? Cosmology. You break it up, you can figure out what it means. Cosmo, what's that? Yeah, it's another word for the universe, the cosmos, the ordered system of being, of physical and energetic things, the cosmos. Okay? And logos means logic or rationality, so cosmology has to do with the logic of the universe. Where did the universe come from? How does the universe work? This is what physicists study, and to some extent astronomers, astrophysicists. Now here's a very strong line of evidence for Christianity. Of course, Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." And John 1:1, echoing Genesis 1, says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God," that's Christ. "All things were made through Him, and apart from Him nothing was made that has been made." So you see there, in the beginning was the Word, was with God, and the Father, and the Son, and all things were made through the Word. So you have the Creator bringing about the creation out of nothing, a finite time ago. So Christianity does not teach that the universe has always existed. The universe has a birthday. All right? We don't know exactly when it was. It was a long time ago. But the universe was brought into existence by God. God spoke, and it came into being, and God ordered it, structured it, created human beings in His image. And it's purposeful. So there is a beginning. There is the one who brought about the beginning. Now let me go through some of the argument here. This is from science. We're not depending on the Bible for this argument. But what you find is the evidence from science lines up with the evidence in Scripture. Scripture tells us that God created the world in several places. And it also tells us that God has left evidence of Himself in the world. Let me look at Romans 1:18 and following for a minute. Verse 18 says, "The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness." Verse 19, "Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse." So what Paul is saying is that God has left a record, He's left clues of Himself in the creation, so that if people deny God, reject God, turn their back on God, they're without excuse. They can't say, "Well, I didn't know. There wasn't enough evidence. It was confusing." So God has brought about the entire cosmos by His will a finite time ago. The universe has a birthday. And it was done so by God. That's what the Bible claims. I don't think the Bible tells us how old the earth is or how old the universe is. But it does say that God created it, God structured it, and God specially created human beings in His image and likeness. Those are the foundational, fundamental things we need to stand on. Now, from science, we learn that the universe began from nothing a finite time ago. It agrees with Scripture. And the argument here is from what has been called Big Bang cosmology. Let me give you some of the evidence for this. You can find this in more detail in the writings of William Lane Craig and also in my book that's coming out in a few months. First of all, and also Robert Jastrow's book, God and the Astronomers. Einstein's general theory of relativity in 1917 contained an error that, when corrected, predicted the universe was expanding. So that was a new idea, the universe is expanding. What does that mean? People weren't sure for a while. In the 1920s, independently of each other, a Belgian astronomer named Lemaitre and a Russian mathematician named Friedman corrected the error. This is known as the Friedman-Lemaitre model. In 1929, the American astronomer Edwin Hubble detected the redshift in distant galaxies. This indicated that what was further away was moving at a greater speed. So this is evidence for expansion. What we're seeing here is a cumulative case argument where everything is starting from nothing and then expanding out. Next point, the detection of cosmic background radiation left over from the initial condition of the universe was detected. You also have the thermodynamics of the universe. The second law of thermodynamics says that the available energy of the universe is running down. Now, if it's running down, it had to have been wound up. Because if the universe had always existed, then there'd be no available energy now, because you have a limited amount of energy. And if you had an infinite amount of time, it would all be run down and there'd be no life. There'd be no organized energy. It's like when you draw bath water. What happens? It doesn't get hotter. You leave it by itself, right? It gets colder. The available energy runs down. Things decay. People get old, die, and so on. Things run down. Yes?
So that's an entropy.
Entropy, yes. The entropic dimension of the universe. Things are going in a direction from usable to non-usable energy. If you look at the whole, right? Now, I haven't given you all the details, but the upshot of this, the conclusion of this, is everything is to be traced back to an initial singularity. Barrow and Tipler put it this way: at this singularity, space and time came into existence. Literally nothing existed before the singularity. That is, nothing physical. So if the universe originated in such a singularity, we would truly have a creation ex nihilo. Now that is a Latin phrase, those last three words, creation ex nihilo. It means creation out of nothing. Now this is a deliverance, this is a conclusion from cosmology. And what's called, colloquially, the Big Bang model is the received and best established model in cosmology. It's challenged, it has some weaknesses, but it's king of the hill for now. Now what's fascinating about this, and I'll show you a short video on this in a minute, is that originally when this was being developed in the 40s, 50s, and 60s and so on, secular scientists didn't like it. They were bothered by it. It flummoxed them. Why? It pointed to an absolute beginning, an absolute origination. And the scientists were naturalists. They believed the universe had always existed without God. There's just the universe. The universe is all that is or was or ever will be. But this evidence from Einstein and from cosmic background radiation and other factors showed that the universe had a beginning. An absolute origination. And in Robert Jastro's book, God and the Astronomers, he quotes scientist after scientist saying, not that it's bad science, but that it bugs us. That's pretty telling. So the Big Bang cosmology says that everything, the entire cosmos, came into existence out of nothing a finite time ago, probably 13 to 15 million years ago. And again, that age doesn't contradict the Bible, because I don't believe the Bible tells us the exact age, or even the general age of the universe of the earth. But it does say that God created it out of nothing. That's very clear. Genesis 1, John 1, Romans 8, Romans 1 that I read, and 18, and so on. The alternative theories for accounting for the universe, the steady-state theory, the oscillating universe theory, lack empirical evidence or contradict known laws of physics. So if this is right, this Big Bang argument from physics, we have strong empirical evidence for a key, crucial, fundamental, foundational fact of the Bible. In the beginning, God created. Now, the Big Bang cosmology doesn't tell us who created it, right? Or how it came about. But if everything comes out of nothing, then either everything comes out of nothing without a cause, or with a cause, right? Now, what sense would it make to think of everything coming out of nothing with no cause? It just pops into existence. Pop goes the universe. Do we have any examples of that? Whenever we observe something moving, coming into being, we're always looking for causes, right? It makes sense. The world has a cause and effect structure. That's known. Now, if the universe, everything material, physical, energy, came into existence, it makes sense to say this. What caused it? It can't be the universe. The universe can't cause itself to come into being, right? Because it would have to exist to make itself exist. That's a contradiction, right? So the best explanation for the origin of everything is a cause outside of the universe that brought about the universe. Now, some of the scientists don't want to go there, but that really is the most logical philosophical explanation. Now, this doesn't tell us everything about God. It doesn't tell us if God came to earth in Christ. It doesn't tell us if the Bible's reliable. But it does tell us the universe is not alone. We are not alone. There is a cause for the universe, far beyond the powers and the abilities of the universe itself. That's significant. Yes?
In preparation for this trip, one of the articles that we read from an atheist responded to that, and he talked about quantum physics and how subatomic particles pop into and out of existence, and he used that as his pushback against what you just said. How would you, if we get that, how would
It's
you
a
respond?
disanalogy. The subatomic particles do act very strangely, and we cannot always chart or understand their patterns of activity, but it's not analogous to everything coming into being out of nothing. This activity is within a matrix of being. It's within a framework of entities, events, and processes. And that's one interpretation of quantum physics, that some things pop into being out of nothing. It's not the only interpretation. It's not necessarily the best interpretation, but even if it were so, things would be coming into being within a larger category of being. And maybe there's some causal explanation functioning there that we don't observe. So it's really disanalogous. Now, I could get more technical if I had some quotes in front of me.
Right.
But Bill Craig has addressed this. John Jefferson Davis has addressed this in one of his books. The fundamental thing is it's the fallacy of false analogy.
And I think Craig says there's 9 different interpretations, and this would just be one.
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so like when they say...
And there's certain, and he said, with his kind of knowledge of the field, he says there's no consensus.
Okay. So when they say, I don't want to derail things here, but
That's fine.
when they say something like there's no cause to this, we can at least say there's no known cause, right?
Right.
We don't know, just because we don't know what causes it.
Exactly.
That's too far.
It's one thing to say there's no known cause. It's another thing to say there's no cause.
Okay.
Because it's a fundamental intuition, it's a fundamental sensibility we have as humans, that events have causes. That events in our world, our contingent world of space and time and finite entities, have causes. Now, God doesn't need a cause, because God is self-existent. God is not dependent on anything outside of himself. So if you say, who caused God, or who designed God, it's a nonsense question. Because God is a self-existent, necessary being. God doesn't require a cause for his existence. But this world, which came into being, which is so changeable and fragile, does require a cause outside of itself. Right? This is something Richard Dawkins always says. Well, you say the universe is designed by some mind outside of the universe. Who designed God? It's not even a sensical, logical question. Because there's such a difference in the very category, the very concept of God as a self-existent being, and the universe, which came into being, and which is changeable and flexible and so on. God is a self-existent, unchanging, perfect being. That kind of a being doesn't need an explanation outside of itself. But we do. We do. But it's a fundamental intuition or sensibility we have that things in our world, or even the whole world, if you want to extrapolate it, requires a cause. So let me give you a totally bizarre example. Maybe Doug remembers this from Apologetics. Let's say a miniature elephant materialized about 10 feet in the air, and it's pink, and it's floating and spinning around. Just bang! Miniature elephant, pink, floating around, and then it disappears. What would you say? Wow. Yeah. After the wow ends, what would you try to do?
What caused it?
Where did it come from? What caused it? You could say we all had a collective hallucination. That doesn't work. You don't have collective hallucinations. Was it from an alien intelligence? That's a good Boulder explanation. What happened? Was it a hologram that was beamed in here as a joke? Right? Everybody in this room would ask for a reason why. Nobody would say, oh, an acausal event. An event without a cause. Call it a elephantophany. An elephant appears, disappears. It's a miniature element too. It smoked in its youth and stunted its growth. So you have a miniature elephant, and it's got this weird coloration, sort of like Lady Gaga, spinning around, and disappears, and we say, oh, what a weird universe it is. Things pop out of being. Nobody would say that. Now, maybe nobody could identify the cause adequately. But we wouldn't say there's no cause. Right? Now, with the Big Bang, we have a perfectly good candidate. God, the Creator, who is not dependent on anything outside of himself.